Right. Good morning, everyone. Can you confirm if you can hear me clearly? All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's special and exclusive knowledge sharing session on accessing BOI, Bank of Industry funds, the myths and the truths. I know many of us have tried at one point or the other to access these funds, but our perception may not just be the correct one. And today, what we are trying to do is sensitize you on how you can access these funds. My name is Abayomi Okideve, and I work with UTL Trusts Management Services Limited, UTL. UTL, formerly Union Trustees Limited, has over 5 decades of consistent professional expertise and experience in diverse kinds of transactions, of trust transactions, and we are duly licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria, commonly known as SEC. With the recent rate hikes in commercial lending space, which has led to an inevitable and significant increase in the cost of production, UTL, as part of our commitment to add value to our existing and potential clients, has collaborated with the Bank of Industry to sensitize us on the opportunities that may exist for accessing low interest facilities from the Bank of Industry. I am almost certain we have a lot of questions to ask. Please note that during the course of the webinar, you can type in your questions into the chat box, and also the recording will be sent to the email addresses which you used to register. Right now, I would like to kindly invite the Head of Trust and Legal Services of UTL, Mrs. Tewaboye Jegede, to give the welcome address.
Thank you very much, Abayomi. And good morning to everyone on the call. We first and foremost want to thank you all for making it a date with us and for joining this webinar. And like Abayomi has said, this is part of our own value-adding services to our clients and our intending clients. And that is why we've gone all out of our way to make this collaboration happen between UTL trustees and Bank of Industry. So permit me to bring you greetings from our board of directors and the management of UTL, and particularly from our MD, Mrs. Olufunke Ayekola, who is also supposed to be on this call, but had to attend to another urgent work-related matter, but we're optimistic that she's going to join us before we round up the session. So welcome once again. And like the theme of our webinar says, assessing BOI funds, myths and truths. We hope that at the end of the session, you would have been able to correct some inaccurate perceptions about how to assess BOI funds, and also be able to take steps in that direction should you require such funding. I mean, who doesn't want a single digit fund, at a time like this, given what the prevailing interest rates is in the current market of today and the economic landscape in Nigeria. So we hope and look forward to an exciting session with you. Please feel free during the Q&A session to ask all those bugging questions that you had, at the back of your mind, because we are set to answer all your questions and ensure that you leave this webinar more enlightened about Bank of Industry and the funds available. You never can tell. Even if you don't need it today, you may need it tomorrow. So please sit back and enjoy this knowledge sharing session with us. Our guest is ready, and I can tell that she's coming with a lot of information that will be for your benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. Just before our guest speaker comes up, let me just give a brief overview. She's Mrs. Aderonke Akinloye, and she presently heads the Business Development Division of the Bank of Industry. She's an accomplished and seasoned banker with over 19 years work experience across the financial services industry. So she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about. She has seen it all. So whatever your questions may be, please feel free to ask. She has the answers for you. And please, there's an emphasis on the sensitization. Please, it's a sensitization webinar. Please take notes. So right now, I'd like to quickly ask Mrs. Aderonke Akinloye to start the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, it's a pleasure to be here. As I have been introduced, my name is Ronke Akinloye. I work for the Bank of Industry, and I'm happy to be in your midst even this morning. It promises to be an engaging session, I can guarantee you that. What I'd like to do now is to, just talk through the outline. Can we have the slides, please? Thank you. Perfect. So today we'll be talking about, I would say, primarily two things. I would share a bit about the Bank of Industry, who we are, what we do, how we do what we do, and then I'll speak to how to access BOI funding. That's where I'll be debunking some of the myths you may have heard, some of the perceptions you may have gone away with in the past. And then I will talk to you about the types of loans and collaterals that we are acceptable to us, our pricing, the interest rates, and the associated fees when you come to BOI to access funding. I would also talk about general loan application requirements, the kind of documentation and the information you need to produce for a successful loan approval in BOI. I'll also speak to how you can apply for BOI loans. I will speak about some of the products that we have. Regardless of what I talk about, what I want to assure is there's something for everyone in BOI. So even if you don't see something that entirely meets your needs, as part of the information that I shared today, please feel free to talk to us. And of course, I'll be happy to answer the questions and that you may have at the end of the presentation. So next slide. So who are we in BOI? BOI is Nigeria's oldest, largest, and if I may say so, most successful development finance institution in Nigeria. And our asset size as the end of 2022, I beg your pardon, was 2.4 trillion. We started as far back as 1959 as the Investment Company of Nigeria. We transformed into Nigeria Industrial Development Bank in 1964, and we became Bank of Industry, BOI, in 2001. Our mandate is to transform Nigeria's industrial sector by providing two things: financial and advisory support, business support for our customers. And in so doing, we help to establish small, medium, and large enterprises and projects. We also help to expand, diversify, rehabilitate, modernize existing businesses. In terms of how we are structured, BOI is one of the 15 government agencies under the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade, and Investment. We are guided by, our developmental mandate is guided by the Federal Government of Nigeria's National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. And in terms of what we do, essentially, as the name implies, Bank of Industry, we are here to provide support to enterprises to industrialize Nigeria. In a nutshell, that's what we do. Some of the other things that we try to accomplish is to make things like to achieve import substitution, drive export promotion, poverty alleviation. Next slide. In so doing, we provided, okay, next slide. Previous slide, sorry. Previous slide. So in doing what we do, no, the introduction slide, thank you. In doing what we do, we have provided 1.4 trillion to over 4 million enterprises since 2015. And this has resulted in over 10 million direct and indirect jobs. Next slide. So again, speaking about why we exist, what's our vision? Our vision is to be Africa's leading development finance institution operating under global best practices. In terms of, if you ask me, whether or not we're getting towards achieving this vision, the answer will be yes. And this is because we've had external validation through the several awards that we have won over the years. These are all on our website. And we're gradually achieving this vision. We want to be Africa, not just Nigeria, Africa's leading development finance institution operating under global best practices. I'll share a few more about that in the following slides. Our mission is to transform Nigeria's industrial sector by providing financial and business support services. So we realize that providing finance is not the only thing that's needed by the enterprises that we support, that there's also a need to provide either advisory or business support services to make sure that they become established in what they're doing. In terms of our mandate, I already mentioned it earlier, we provide financial assistance for the establishment of large, medium, small-scale projects, as well as expansion, diversification, modernization, and rehabilitation of existing enterprises. Next slide. So what do we do in BOI? What's our operating model like? We have primarily 3 business units, and we finance the entire value chain. So regardless of what size you are as a business, if you're a micro enterprise, we have a solution for you. If you're a small and medium enterprise, we have a solution for you. If you're a large enterprise, we have a solution for you. And we have dedicated teams to each customer segment. So we finance the entire value chain. And in terms of the kind of financing that we provide, it is debt finance, long-term finance in the form of term loans and working capital. So under the Micro Enterprises Directorate, this is where we finance the really small businesses. In BOI, if you are borrowing up to 10 million naira, you are considered as a micro enterprise. And this is where some of the informal businesses and the cooperatives are basically managed. We also manage some government initiatives like the FGN MSME Survival Fund. And we use technology. The growth platform is used to deploy some of the technology, some of the initiatives that government has. You may have heard of trader money or market money. That's something that we use the growth platform to deploy on behalf of government. For the small and medium enterprises, we have businesses that are borrowing between 10 million naira and up to 1 billion naira. And these SMEs are serviced through our state offices across the country. We have about 31 state offices across the country. And like I said earlier, we have dedicated teams looking at the various customer segments. Now, for the large enterprises, you are considered a large enterprise in BOI if you are borrowing over 1 billion naira. And the large enterprises are serviced primarily from the head office at number 23 Marina, Lagos Island. Next slide. So how do we do what we do? We focus on industry segments. We have what we call our core and our emerging sectors. Our core sectors are the mainstay of the economy. Of course, you will agree with me that agro processing is agriculture in general constituted a significant proportion of the GDP. So agro processing is one of the areas which we focus on. Food, we all need food to survive. Food and beverages is another key and core sector. Oil and gas is another key and core sector. Healthcare and petrochemicals is another sector. Pharmaceuticals, a core sector. Chemical and industrial minerals, a core sector. Mining and metals is another core sector. Now, in terms of our emerging sectors, these are areas that have begun to grow. These are areas that are in the growth phase, as it were. So creative and digital space, these are areas that we have started to support and we're seeing traction. The renewable energy, we all know what's happening to the environment and the fact that we need to have sustainable practices and use renewable forms of energy to protect our environment. So we have a team that is dedicated solely to that purpose. We have a gender business where we source gender-led funds, and we look after women-owned and women-led businesses. We have the engineering and technology group also that caters to everything technology and engineering. And then from a services perspective, we realize that hospitality is key and tourism. So we have a team that's looking specifically after hospitality, hotels, and things like that, and tourism. Next slide. So how do we do what we do? What are the primary drivers of our developmental strategy? The key pillars that we consider are: number one, we provide what I would say arguably is one of the best and the most competitive interest rates. And our tenor is longer than what you would typically get, in the market. You will agree with me, for those who are in business on the call here, that usually the problem sometimes is not about access to finance, it's accessing the right type of financing for your business, the one that allows you to retain capital, profit, and then reinvest and scale. So BOI does just that. We provide very low interest rates, as you will find out later on, and our tenors are anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And this is very competitive if you compare it to what is available in the market. Now, also, one of the key pillars that we use is that we provide innovative financing solutions. BOI, I dare say, was one of the first set of financial institutions to provide funding for the creative space. We created the Nolly Fund several years ago to promote, our Nigerian local filmmakers, to finance them. So we are constantly scanning the market. We're looking for what is happening in the market and how we can provide solutions for what our customers need and what Nigerians need in general. You will agree with me that the MSMEs create the most jobs in Nigeria. So it definitely, when we're thinking about who to finance, who to support, we're looking at MSMEs in general. Same with youth and women empowerment programs. We have a teeming population of young adults who need to be engaged. So we have products that are targeted at youth specifically. Value creation is one of the issues that we have as a continent. We have a lot of natural resources, but we do not develop our natural resources as we should. So one of the focus for us at BOI is to make sure that whatever project we get involved in, we're adding value to something so that it can be better and it can be better priced. You can earn greater revenue. Of course, job creation is a key priority for us, to promote economic and industrial development. We also look at projects that add value to the society at large and are sustainable in their nature. I mentioned earlier that export promotion and the reversal of import substitution is one of the things that we would always look at. And the idea here is to promote the quality of our exports so that we're competitive at the international markets. We can earn much more foreign exchange and become more prosperous as a country. We're also constantly looking at how the projects that we finance are creating forward and backward linkages such that we can achieve integrated economic growth. Again, local content development, raw material development is very closely related to value creation. It is something that is very close to our heart at BOI. We want to make sure that we are harnessing the natural resources that we have in the best possible way, in such a way that it creates a competitive advantage for us as a nation. And all of this is within the context of operating responsibly and making sure that our environment is not, it does not suffer for our actions. So again, we want to ensure that, even in producing, in manufacturing, that we are practicing sustainable, we're utilizing sustainable practices so that our environment continues to support us in the long run. Next slide. So again, how do we do what we do? Apart from providing finance, I mentioned earlier that we provide we provide business advisory support. And how do we do that? We leverage strategic partnerships with some people will call BDSPs. Essentially, they are SME consultants to the bank. And those category of people, they offer advisory and business support services to our SMEs. This strategic partnership we commenced in 2014. And when we started, we had about 122 of them. As of today, we have about 400 BDSPs, and their role is basically to prospect for SMEs for the bank and support them in applying successfully for a loan. So they will handhold all the entrepreneurs, SMEs they come into contact with and help them in making sure that their businesses or their business plans and their projects are bankable. And also help them in providing entrepreneurship training as required. There are various categories of BDSPs. There's a state category, which means they operate only in one state. There's a regional BDSP, which means that they operate in more than one state, at least two states. And then there's a national category of BDSP, which operates across the entire country. The interesting thing about this strategic partnership is that BOI, leveraging our partners, actually does something fantastic, which is bridging the access to finance gap for Nigerian MSMEs. And how do we do that? We subsidize the cost of accessing their services so that our SMEs, Nigerian SMEs, can actually access the technical know-how, the professional services they need to access finance without paying for it. So what we require for the MSMEs is to just pay a token at the point of engagement to show their commitment to that particular project. When they apply for the loan and the loan is successful, BOI approves the loan, BOI will actually pay the BDSP. I'm going to say it again. BOI will actually pay the BDSP for helping a Nigerian SME access money from BOI. If we were in a live audience, I would have said a round of applause at this stage for BOI. But since I can't hear your applause, I will just move on to the next slide. In terms of development impact, in total, we have created about 10 million jobs since between 2015 and 2022. And we've supported about 4.3 million different businesses over the last 7 years. Next slide. Next slide, please. Now, to the meat of the matter. I'm sure quite a few people joined because you really want to understand how you can access funding from BOI. The first thing that I'd like to say is that you do not need to know anybody in BOI to access our funding. Yes, it's a government agency, but you do not need to know anybody. You do not need to have a personal relationship with anyone to access BOI funding. BOI will fund anyone whose project is bankable on the merit of the project and not based on relationships. The second thing I'd like to say is that you do not need to pay anyone to access BOI funding. The funds that we raise are for Nigerians. If you have a bankable business plan, you have a project, a business that you are running, please feel free to apply to us and we will consider your business proposal on the merit of its viability. The third thing I would like to say is that your processing will not take a year. We've had reports about people saying that their loan applications have taken sometimes up to a year. That does not happen in BOI anymore. If it does happen, that would be the exception rather than the norm. And so I'd just like to say and assure everyone that if you do apply to BOI, your processing will not take a year. We aim to finish our appraisal within 6 to 8 weeks, provided that you have provided all the documentation we require to start. So your processing will definitely not take a year. BOI does not only support manufacturing industries. There's some people in some quarters believe that only if you are producing something will BOI finance you. As I mentioned earlier, there are service industries like the hospitality, the tourism industry that we also support. So it does not matter whether you are into core manufacturing or you're a service provider. If you have a project that you want to finance, please feel free to talk to us and we'll discuss how we can support you. Some people also believe in some quarters that micro enterprises cannot access BOI funding. As I mentioned when I was going through the slides earlier, we cater to the entire value chain of customers. Small enterprises, micro enterprises, medium enterprises, large enterprises, all can access BOI funding. So we don't do only large ticket transactions, we do small ticket transactions, medium-sized ticket transactions, and large ticket transactions. Again, some people believe that you have to have been in business before you can apply to BOI. But the reality is that we fund startups. All we want to see and ensure is that irrespective of whether you're a startup or you're an existing business, we want to be sure that that project that you're embarking on or that you have started is viable. So I hope this clears the air for some of us or all of us about some of the things you may have heard in the past that are not entirely true. I will be happy to answer your questions when we get to the Q&A, when we get to the time for Q&A. Next slide. So what are the types of loans that we provide? And what sort of collateral do we find acceptable? And what is our pricing? So as I mentioned earlier, we do provide equipment finance and working capital. If you are a first-time customer, BOI can do a combination of both, which means that we can provide you equipment finance and working capital. If you're a return customer, which means that we have financed equipment for you in the past, you can come back for just working capital. And BOI is such a, because of our development focus, you can actually have more than one loan running in BOI concurrently. The only condition for you coming back for a second loan is that your first loan is performing. I'll start with the micro loans. If you are asking for 10 million and below in BOI, you are considered to be a micro enterprise. And all you need to access that type of funding outside of your documentation is 2 external guarantors, 2 people who are external to your company, but who can stand and vouch for your, your credibility, your character, and the strength of your business, who can stand for you and say, should anything happen to this loan, they would guarantee the loan. You need just 2 of that to access up to 10 million naira in BOI. Now, in terms of anything above 10 million naira, then we would ask you for securities such as bank guarantee, legal mortgage, or in some cases, an all-asset debenture. For our pricing, it ranges anywhere from 5% for some funds all the way up to 10%. So BOI lends from our balance sheet, and we also have third-party funds that we manage on behalf of our strategic partners. In some instances, that's government. In some instances, they're private sector organizations who give us money to lend on their behalf. Pricing, like I said, if we're giving you a term loan for your equipment, is anywhere from 5% to 10%, depending on the loan. Now, in terms of the interest rate on working capital, if you are an SME, you would be charged 12.5%. If you are a large enterprise, which means that you're borrowing above $1 billion, and then you'll be asked to pay 14% per annum. With every loan in your first year, you will be asked to pay 1% appraisal fee and a 1% commitment fee. On an ongoing basis, every quarter, we have what is called the monitoring fee, which is a very minute amount, 0.0125%. on the outstanding balance. So as you pay down, that value reduces. And then in the extreme scenario whereby you may have to restructure your finance for whatever reasons, then there's a 1% fee that we charge for restructuring our loans. Now, there are other applicable fees that are statutory fees and professional legal fees, and that will depend on the type of security that you provide. Next slide. So how do you apply for our loans? The first thing is that we don't lend to individuals, we lend to businesses. So you have to be a registered business. So you either may be an enterprise, a cooperative, or a limited liability company. In terms of how you can apply, that's the essence of this webinar. If you have any business project that you'd like us to consider, you can send an email to the email address that is on the screen, businessdevelopmentgroup@boi.ng, or you can walk into any of our state offices across the 31 locations we have in Nigeria. Next slide. So I'll be speaking to some select BOI loan products. The first one is the agricultural value chain financing, and the target for this particular product is the aggregators, people who aggregate smallholder farmers. I was told that quite a number of people who are in agriculture will be on this call, which is why I selected this particular loan product. So if you're an aggregator, then this product paper is for you. And basically, it is for those who manage smallholder farmers. And you also have guaranteed offtake agreements from local manufacturers or processors, such that whatever you harvest from the farmers can be supplied directly to those who are processing it, and you can get your money back and then reinvest. So in terms of what the single obligor limit is 2 billion per obligor. The interest rate pricing is 10% per annum. There's a 1% processing fee, as well as a 1% commitment fee. You'll be expected to pay insurance as well. Tenure for this loan is maximum of 2 years to allow for multiple planting cycles. And the eligibility criteria is that the farmers that you work with must belong to cooperatives, and they should be managed in a structured way. And that the yields from the farmers must be tied to a guaranteed offtake agreement with local processors or manufacturers, so that there's a route to market and you can recoup your investment. Next slide. So the next product that I'll talk about is the MSME distributor finance product. We created this product in recognition of the fact that a lot of the economic activity in Nigeria is driven by trade. And so the people who will, basically, let me rephrase that. So a lot of the economic activity driven by trade, and also in recognition of the fact that there's much more digital adoption these days, and that we can leverage technology to achieve our means. So who is the target market? These are distribution intermediary companies that have the capability and enablement to manage the activities of retailers and micro businesses through technology-driven platforms. In terms of what the single obligor limit is 2 billion per annum, per obligor. In terms of pricing, 12% per annum. Fees, 0.5% processing fee, 0.5% commitment fee. I wouldn't be overly focused on that for now. What's important is that pricing is 12% per annum, and you can get as much as 2 billion as an obligor. Tenure is a maximum of 24 months as well. So for the eligibility criteria, 2 things stand out. You must have a digital platform, an e-commerce platform that facilitates inventory management and provides easy access to goods and services for micro enterprises. You must have access to a large network of micro businesses, retailers on your platform. You must also be willing to grant BOI viewing access to the back end of your technology platforms so that we can monitor the activities that are related to our financing. You must have an evidence of an existing warehouse storage facility, depot, if you're operating from a rented warehouse. And you must at least have a tenure of 1 year so that we are sure that your business will continue to operate. And you must have existing partnerships that allow with local producers so that you are not restricted to any particular location. You must also have a way of keeping the stock for your customers on your platform as well. Next slide. Next slide, please. So again, I understood that there are quite a few oil and gas people on the call. So I'd like to talk about the Nigerian Content Intervention Fund. This is a fund that was created by NCDMB to support indigenous oil and gas players to procure fixed assets and also to fund working capital. Now, in terms of what the NCIF fund allows, it actually allows you to refinance if you're an oil and gas player, refinance an existing loan so long as it is performing. It allows you to access this fund for contract finance if you have a contract that you want to execute. And it allows you to get funding for manufacturing. It allows you to get funding for any type of asset acquisition if you're acquiring maybe a rig, a marine vessel, or anything like that. And it also allows you to access the fund for community contractors finance. The eligibility is that you must be a contributor to the Nigerian Content Development Fund. And with your remittance ID, you can actually apply for this funding. This funding is deployed leveraging a technology platform. There's a portal, the NCIF portal, where you can log on to with your remittance ID and commence your request for this fund. Now, in terms of what's applicable, like I said, you can use this fund, if working capital is what you require, or if it's a term loan, or maybe even a leasing facility, invoice discounting. The pricing is very attractive, it's 8% per annum. It also allows you to draw from this fund either in local currency or foreign currency. So if you are refinancing, you can refinance up to 10 million US dollars in foreign currency. If you are getting community contractors finance, you can get up to 20 million naira at 5% per annum. Everything else is priced at 8%. If you are buying an asset, maybe a marine vessel, a rig, or anything like that, you can access up to $10 million at 8%. And if you're manufacturing, you're buying, equipment, you can also get as much as $10 million as well. And the tenure for this loan is up to 5 years with a moratorium of 1 year. Next slide. So the last product that I'll be talking about is what we call the Nigerian Artisanal and Small-Scale Miners Finance Support Fund. This is a fund that we're managing on behalf of government. The target market is cooperative societies, associations, limited liability companies engaged in artisanal or small-scale mining across Nigeria, involving industrial minerals, precious stones, precious metal like gold, and other minerals, similar minerals in Nigeria. And the money can be used to purchase or lease plant and machinery, and it can also be accessed for working capital. The fund is sized at 2.5 billion. The maximum you can take as an obligor, if you're a small scale miner, you can take up to 100 million naira. If you are an artisanal miner, you can get less than 10 million, but working capital cannot be more than 1 million. In terms of pricing, this is priced at 5%, also very attractive, 5% per annum, and the processing fee is 0.5%. Now, if you get a term loan as a small scale miner, you can get it for up to 5 years, including a 1-year moratorium. If you're asking for working capital, you can get up to 3 years. And you also have a moratorium period included in that. Next slide, please. as part of our partnership, we have what we call matching funds. And, essentially what that means is that if any government institution, any state government rather, if they come to us and they give us a certain amount, BOI will match it. So for the purpose of this conversation, assuming Lagos State government gives us 100 million, or let's say 1 billion, BOI will provide an additional 1 billion to match the 1 billion provided by the state government, and we'll have a pool of funds totaling 2 billion for the use of Lagos State indigenes to borrow money. And we have this existing matching fund arrangement in 24 states in Nigeria. The list is there, so have a look at the states that are listed there to see if you are operating from any of those states or you are an indigene of any of those states. You can obtain up to 50 million naira from this matching funds. An interest rate in terms of pricing is anywhere from 5 to 10%, and the tenor again is up to 5 years. Moratorium is up to 1 year. Next slide. So we also have other strategic partnerships, and these strategic partnerships do different things for us. If you can see the screen, you can see the logos of different organizations and institutions. Some of them have helped us in mobilizing funds that we can then use to boost our lending capacity. Some of them assist us with knowledge sharing so that we can continue to create innovative financing solutions for Nigerian businesses. And some of them also help in capacity building for the people that we serve, the MSMEs, the large corporates that we serve. Next slide. So the summary of this page this is just showing credit ratings and the ISO certification. It basically just tells you that we have strong credit ratings and we have ISO certifications that mean that we operate under global best practices. Next slide. And that is the end of the presentation. In terms of how you can contact us, we are in Marina, the head office, 23 Marina Street, Lagos Island. And then we have state offices across 31 locations. The list is on the screen. If you have specific requests that you'd like to send to me or my team, the email address is businessdevelopmentgroup@boi.ng. At this point, I will pause and hand over to Abayomi before we go into the Q&A session. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you very much, Madam, for such an insightful session. I mean, we got more than what we bargained for, and I'm sure that our audience, I mean, a lot of them have been typing in questions. Thanks to Mr. Farouk for answering some of them already, but I'd just like to go ahead and ask some which may seem pertinent. Right, so the major question here is about BSPs. And I think the major challenge is how do they verify that the person they are dealing with is an accredited BDSP? Some have had experiences with some who ended up being, ingenuine BDSPs.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so yes, that's a very valid question. We have a list on our website that and we update it almost every week. Every time we admit new BDSPs, we put them on the website. So if you want to validate that, the person you're dealing with is an accredited BDSP, have a look on our website. If you want to be doubly sure, please send an email to businessdevelopmentgroup@boi.ng, and we will be happy to answer and confirm whether or not the organization is a BDSP that we have accredited.
All right, thank you very much, Madam, for that. Another question here. I'm going through it because we said this is a sensitization webinar. So pardon me if I do not read out your question, especially if you have grievances. We'll look into that in private. The slides, are we permitted to share the slides, Ma?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Indeed, you can. I'm actually seeing some of the questions, and I'd like to answer Hassan Yakubu directly.
Right, Ma. Please go ahead, Ma.
You can actually apply to BOI for your loan. You don't have to go through the BDSPs. The BDSPs were created to support those who are not able to document their business plans, those who may not be able to apply. The people who have a knowledge of their business but don't have the financial savvy to document bankable business loan applications. So the support is for those category of people. But if you know exactly what to do, if you can prepare all your documentation, if you can, write your business plan, your financial projections, please feel free to, reach out to us directly.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate, you do not need to pay anyone or know anyone. So if anyone is asking you to bring any amount of money, please do not oblige.
That's a red flag. If somebody is asking you to bring money, that's a red flag. You really, please should ignore and report such people. It's not allowed.
Someone is asking, in the areas of private equity or venture capitalism, what do you do? How can you help out?
So I mentioned earlier that, we provide debt financing. So that's our remit. So we don't get into private equity or venture capital.
All right. Thank you for the clarification, Ma. An LPG facility with respect to oil and gas industry. So we seem to have quite a number of people who are into gas plants here and there. We'd like to ask, in asset financing, would you also support in setting up a gas plant, or I have a gas plant already and I need to expand?
Sure. The answer is yes, overwhelming yes.
All right. So Mr. Farouk has already answered most of the school owners. I don't know if you want to say something with respect to that. Education, the education sector, it wasn't mentioned in the slides.
Okay, so yes, there's something that I'd like to say, and this beyond education, what I'd like to say is that irrespective of what we consider to be core and emerging sectors, BOI will look at your business plan to the extent that you are creating value and to the extent that what you propose to do or your existing business is a viable one. And especially if we're buying you equipment. So in the case of the school, for instance, now, if you have a school, maybe a secondary school or primary school, you want to, expand it to become a secondary school, you need to set up your laboratory, you need to buy tables and desks and chairs and things like that for your students because of the growth that you expect. You will look at it, look at your financial projection, look at your performance, if your cash flow and your turnover is able to support the loan and if it's going to be a viable one. And we would make a decision based on the information that is provided. So please, regardless of what we consider to be core and emerging, if you have any business that you are looking for financing, especially the type of financing that we provide, please feel free to talk to us. Again, my colleague Farouk is on the call. He will drop the, in the chat, I beg your pardon, he will drop the email address for the group so that you can send us an email and we'll deal with the inquiries. So we're not restricting to just what we shared. If you're a school and you have an expansion plan, please talk to us. We'll guide you through the process.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. I have another one here. Does BOI support contract financing or LPO financing for SMEs?
Contract financing, no. We are like I said, a development institution. And if you look at some of the things I call the pillars, we want to make sure that you are manufacturing, you are producing something. So if all you are doing is, getting financing to execute a contract, it doesn't fall into the remit of what you will do in BOI. But If you need to buy equipment, and that equipment will then be used to produce something, or in the process you will create jobs, yes, we'll be happy to look at it. But contract financing is not one of the things that we do in BOI, except for specific funds. You know, when I was talking about the NCIF fund, recall that I mentioned that that money is a third-party fund created by NCDMB for the use of players in the oil and gas sector, and that allows you to do contract finance. So there's some funds that we have that the fund owners asked us to, expand the use of the fund, like the NCIF fund. But if you are coming to BOI directly, the answer is no to contract finance.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. I think a lot of people still need some clarity on startups. So we have a few questions here that say, okay, I have the piece of land, but I've not started operations. I'm looking for money to buy assets or to build or do this or do that. Would you give me money?
Yes, based on our assessment, our credit appraisal and our assessment of the viability of the project. So yes, for those who have an idea and they want to sort of explore the feasibility of the idea, I would say that, your first point of call should be the SME consultants if you're not able to test the feasibility yourself. If you are able to test the feasibility yourself and you have a strong business case, you have your projections that show, how much revenue you can generate year on year, and you can put all your documentation together, feel free to talk to us. We will look at your project. So long as it meets our risk acceptance criteria, we'll be happy to support you. But if you don't even know how to put it together, then I would suggest you have a look on our website, reach out to any of the BDSPs that are listed on there, have a conversation with them. Let them help you determine whether your business idea is feasible at all. Then when it's feasible, you can proceed to actually applying for a loan in BOI.
All right, thank you. So someone is asking about the health sector again. What level of financing can we get for assets and working capital?
So we have a strong balance sheet. The financing that you need, we can support you to the extent that we can see that your business is able to repay from its operations. So, for us, we don't discriminate. If you have a small business, we will finance you. If you have a large ticket transaction, we will look at it and give you what we believe is adequate for the operations, whether it's you're expanding or you're just starting out. So, to whoever asked that question, I don't think you should be concerned about the limit or the quantum. We will give you what we consider to be the need of your business.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. Again, like to reiterate that you do not need, because questions keep coming up, you do not need to pay anyone or know anyone. You do not need to apply to get a BDSP. Go on the website, there's a list, you see the accredited BDSPs, and if you are still in doubt, you can always walk into the closest BOI office to you, all over the nation. In Lagos here, they are number 23, Marina Street, on Lagos Island. So please do not pay anyone, and you do not need to know anyone. There is no Nigerian factor in BOI. Please and please.
I would just like to say something. So if you want to confirm whether a particular company is a BDSP, look on the website. If you want to be doubly sure, send an email to businessdevelopmentgroup@boi.ng. Now, for the BDSPs, what I said when I was making the presentation is that we heavily subsidize the cost of accessing a BDSP. So what we expect you to pay as an entrepreneur, as an SME, when you engage a BDSP, is a token fee, and the maximum amount, I think, is about 200,000 Naira, maximum, depending on how much you are asking for, how much you want to borrow. Now, the rest of the fees, you will agree with me that anyone who is preparing a business plan for you these days in Nigeria will not charge you 200,000 Naira. They will charge you a whole lot more. but that difference is paid by BOI so long as the loan application is successful. So I hope that clarifies it. So you'll be expected to pay a token to the BDSPs to demonstrate your commitment to that project. And then, BOI will pay them a success fee, sometimes up to 5 million naira that we pay to the BDSPs for their services. And we did that to make sure that nobody's left out. There's some people, like I said earlier, who have strong experience in their areas, respective businesses, but they just don't have the financial savvy to be able to document, what they do, create a structure around their business, and prepare a bankable business plan. So that's why we intermediated by creating strategic partnerships with these BDSPs so that they can render the service. And when you are successful, BOI will actually bear the cost of that service. I hope that clarifies. And if you're applying to BOI directly for a loan, then of course you don't need to know anybody and you don't need to pay anybody anything to access our funding.
All right, thank you, Ma. Also, she has mentioned that even if what you have is, I believe, just an idea, your business plan, the feasibility studies, the repayment plan has to be top notch. So I have questions there. I mean, what I have is just an idea. BOI would not fund just an idea. You need to have it on paper. It needs to be clear. There needs to be properly structured repayment plan for it. And if you are not able to do it on your own, that's where the BDSPs come in. But if you can do it on your own, you can walk right into any BOI office or go online and start your application. So do not let the fact that your business is still just an idea stop you from accessing the funds, but ensure that the documentation is properly done.
Perfect.
All right, Ma, I think on round. Okay, so let me just quickly keep this in here. Maybe you would be able to help us out. We have a few clients who have said, oh, we have offers from BOI, but the banks are not, responding to us. They are not acknowledging the offers. They can't give us a bank guarantee. What other options would you recommend for such people?
We accept legal mortgages. So, for the MSME space, we have more flexibility around the type of security that we can accept. So you don't actually need to go through a bank if you are asking for, if you're an SME, you're asking for maybe upwards of, up onto maybe like 200, 250 million, 300 million naira. If you have a legal mortgage, if you have a property rather, that can be put into a legal mortgage, you can come to us directly. We would look at the asset, value it, so long as the valuation makes sense, it covers the value of the loan that you're applying for, we can create a legal mortgage and you can access the funds directly. But for higher amounts, that's when we begin to insist that you must then get a bank guarantee. So for those who are finding it difficult to get bank guarantees, one of the things that I would suggest you look at is look at the quantum of how much you need and see whether you can make it into phases such that what you have as collateral at the moment may be able to suffice for the first phase. And then, as you expand your operations, you might be able to come back for another loan, or, at that point, maybe your business will be attractive enough for the commercial banks to issue the bank guarantees, because they still do issue bank guarantees, even as we speak.
All right, thank you, Ma. If you would like to apply as a BDSP, please, you can always reach out to BOI, or they probably will have the requirements on the website.
They can also send the email to the business development group at boi.ng.
Yeah. So please, irrespective of what state you're in. So if you're in Kaduna, I have someone from Kaduna here asking that question. Please, you can always send an email or call or visit the website. The requirements would definitely be given to you. Right. Any women-centered or focused funds?
Right now, what we have is a team that specifically looks after the women-owned businesses or women-led businesses. Like I said, we also from time to time, have strategic partnerships that help us to achieve our developmental objectives. One of the things that we had which was like a gender lens type of funding was actually what we call the matching grant. It was, we've done 2 iterations, we're on the 3rd iteration now. It was a project we named Project Brave. It was targeted at women-owned businesses and women-led businesses. And Brave is an acronym for Business Resilience and Value Added Enterprises. And the way that fund was a third-party fund, what BOI did was to support the implementation of that fund. And the fund owner wanted to specifically provide financing for women-owned businesses or women-led businesses. And it was a matching grant. It was actually not even a loan. It was a grant in the sense that if you needed 10 million naira, for instance, for your business, they would give you 5 million as a grant, and then you'll be expected to produce the remaining 5 million so that you can then go on to use it for your business, to acquire machinery, and then go on to produce more, manufacture, and then scale up. So that we've had 2 iterations, they've closed. The third one is about to start. And that's one of the ways in which we have provided funding for women specifically. But in addition to that, what we're also doing is that we're also talking to strategic partners, and we're on the verge of signing gender lens funds that are targeted specifically at women. Once that's available, we will announce to the public and people can come and apply.
All right, thank you very much, Ma, for taking your time to answer the questions. I think we've gone round. Mr. Farouk is still answering questions on the chat. And also, please check the chat box. The email address is also there. It's also on the slide. That's businessdevelopmentgroup@boi.ng. Or you can just go on Google and type Bank of Industry, and it will take you to their webpage. And their head office, once again, is at 23 Marina Street, Lagos, Nigeria. I would like to appreciate Mrs. Aderonke Akinlui. And very quickly, I'd like to invite Samson Newton to give the vote of thanks and also tell us about what UTL does and our role in these transactions.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, sorry, good afternoon, everybody. We're already in the afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, Samson.
I'd like to first and foremost thank the guest speaker for a very insightful and well prepared slide. Okay, so I would like to thank Mrs. Aderonke Akinlui for the industry that she has put into place, because the benefits were enormous. So I would like to also use this medium to discuss what UTL does. We are a trust company, and when it comes to issues like this, we provide security services. We provide security services in terms of loan facilities. So, for example, if BOI is going to give facilities, we stand in as trustees to secure the assets in favor of BOI for the lenders. We also provide custodial services in case the companies, yourselves or the lenders, want the assets to be kept in custody of the trustee. These are the functions that we serve and we provide for. Furthermore, we also we provide facilitating service. Like for example, this webinar that we have hosted to facilitate the BOI facilities. So we do advisory and we provide solicitor services to ensure that everybody is properly protected and taken care of. So without further ado, I would like to once more thank the guest speaker for the time she has left and given to enlighten everybody. I think I've learned so much, and I would also look forward to doing more on a personal level with BOI. And I'm sure that everybody on this call and this webinar would also want to proceed to deal and do business with one of the foremost development banks in Nigeria. Thank you once more for your amazing time. On behalf of the board of directors and the management of UTL and everybody on this call, we'd like to say thank you. And maybe if we call you next time, we really hope that you would also you will come once more and answer the clarion call. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure to be able to share what we do at BOI. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who joined. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. And before we leave, I just want to list the key takeaways, just in case we have anyone who is still joining at this particular point in time. The first is BOI is for everyone and it's for anyone. You do not need to know anybody to access funds from BOI. BOI loans are not going to take you 1 year to get. Also, you do not need to pay anybody. BOI handles all that for you. All you need to do is go to the website, look for an accredited BDSP if you cannot handle your documentation yourself. But if you can, please do well to walk into any BOI office and speak to them directly. Also, the major criteria are your documentations, and which include your business plan, the feasibility studies, our repayment plan. So even if what you have is an idea, maybe you're the next Mark Zuckerberg or you're the next Dangote or wherever it is that you are, just come with that idea, walk into any BOI office, and I'm sure that with the right documentation and guidance, you will get what you want. Once again, thank you very much, madam. Thank you, Mr. Farouk, for answering the questions and for also joining us on the call. And very quickly, we will have a very short poll before you log out. Just help us fill it. Just let us know how well the information shared was impactful.
Okay, thank you so much, Abayomi. I'd just like to add that, for those who want to apply directly, please feel free to send an email to businessdevelopmentgroup@boi.ng. If you have a project that you'd like us to consider at the bank, my team will be happy to look at that, businessdevelopmentgroup@boi.ng. If for those who may miss this webinar, of course, I'm sure that the team at UTL can direct them to us as well. So the email address again is businessdevelopmentgroup@boi.ng. Thank you very much.
A recording of this webinar and the slides will also be sent to the email addresses which you registered with. All right, thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Farouk. Do have a great day.
Thank you too. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Please, participants, don't forget to take the poll. Thank you very much.